Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Still in Love podcast. This is episode number 17, and this is our season finale.
Yes, season finale.
Yes.
And we're going to have some fun today with Q&A. So there's been questions that you've been asking us, and we're going to answer these questions and have some fun.
Okay.
And we hope that you enjoy your holiday season, enjoy Christmas and the holidays, and let's have some fun today. Let's go.
Alrighty. Our first question for today is coming from someone from our TikTok family, and that is Mr. Tony Martin, 07. And his question is, why not just say you want to vent if that's what you want? If he has to read your mind for that moment, where does the line end on other situations? That's a very good question.
That's a very good question. I think this is very important. I think, number one, it is so important that, but let me say this. I remember, Tori, you told me this. You said this, and it really changed a lot. And just for me in the way I perceive things, the way I approach things. You said this to me before because I was trying to figure out certain things about you, and I didn't feel like there was a lot of communication with you really expressing certain things about you, and I needed to figure it out. And I think that has its place. I think you should communicate, with your spouse about how you feel. You should communicate with your spouse about, hey, look, this is a conversation that I just really want to vent, and I don't really want you to say anything. So I think those things are important, ladies. If you're having a conversation with your husband and you just kind of really want to share and you don't really want to respond back, sometime, let him know that. Other times, brothers, it's important that we discern what's going on. If she doesn't say that, you have to be in tune with her and discern if this is one of those times that she want your opinion or if she, just want to vent. So discern that, meaning oftentimes just take a chill pill and not respond. Like, just don't respond. Just, yes, okay, wow, interesting. And she'll come along and say, so what do you think about it? That's your cue to give your input and to give her, methods to fix it. All right, so I think that's important. But this is so important. You said this to me, which blew me away when I was struggling with, because I'm not a mind reader. What do you want me to do? And you said, hey, listen, the same thing that you do when you coach on the football field. Say you go to games, you know what teams are going to do before they do it. You know everything about this team because you scout the team. You said, scout me like you scout them teams.
Absolutely.
I was just like, oh. And what was so important is that you spoke my language. You spoke the sports language. That's the language that I speak. This is what I do. And that was so wise on your end because you knew you couldn't talk about, designing a home and speaking that language to talk about, something that I'm not interested in. You talked about something that I'm interested in, highly interested in, and you communicated to me on the level that I was on. And you said, scout me. And it changed the game because I began to pay attention when she wouldn't communicate or when she didn't, when I felt like, okay, I wish I got more information. Well, you know what? I'm not going to leave it up to her to tell me. She has a responsibility to speak, but I have a responsibility to find out what is going on and to scout her. So, brother, I want to encourage you. Find out the need of your woman. Find out, discern the situation and take it easy. Take it slow and understand, okay, this may be a time to where she doesn't want a response. And let me chill. I think that should be your lead in anyway. I think that should be the first response. Well, maybe she doesn't want me to respond back. Do you remember conversations that we've had before and you expressed some things to me and I didn't say anything? And you was like, say something. Are you going to say something?
Yeah.
Because I was being wise and not really responding until you said, say something. That was my cue or the green light for me to go ahead and, okay, this is what I think. But prior to, I would always, when you say something, well, let me tell you what you should do. I think you should do it. And you weren't needing it. And sometimes when I would do that, you would just stop talking. I'm like, why is she not talking? Because I was trying to fix it rather than listening to you vent.
And I think it has to be a little bit of, for one, understanding. I think as women, we have to understand that what is probably, now you're going to always have people who either fall above or fall below when you talk about certain things. So sometimes when we're saying things, there are general statements that's made, but some people and you'll understand what I'm saying when I make this statement. I think for most men, it is difficult for them to really, it's because in order to really pay attention to somebody and give them what they really need, I think they really, there's a certain place emotionally I think men have to be in order to do that, to give of themselves like that. And I don't think that that's something that has been cultivated in men. It's been encouraged in a lot of men. So that's an area where they struggle. Really looking at their wife and saying, okay, I noticed that you mentioned the word discern, or you mentioned just kind of paying attention to them. But even if they paid attention, if you don't have the capacity to really not just pay attention, but to really see or discern what your response needs to be, there's still going to be this gap. Because if, let's just say that, life is doing what life is doing, and everything is well, but she's just kind of having a moment. If you don't recognize that moment, you
That's
just
good.
see it as, okay, well, she's in an attitude, or she's in a funk or something. And it's like, no, it could be something that's going on. But if you don't pause, and if you don't have the capacity to respond to that the right way, then you're still leaving a void.
Yeah.
So I think that part is important. Recognizing whether or not that's an area of strength for you, or if that's an area of weakness for you. And as you know, my brothers, if that is an area of weakness, that's something that you have to give attention to. And you're going to have to work on that. You're going to have to practice, because if that's not something that was cultivated in you, you're going to have to cultivate that, because you're married to someone who has emotions. And for us, as women, we've talked about this on previous episodes, emotional security is important. I need to know, for one, that I'm seen. And you don't see me by looking at me. You see me by paying attention to me. So if you notice that something is off, then don't sit back and wait for me to say that, or to say something is off if you notice that. But that's a part of the problem. And I think we hear that sometimes with women. He doesn't see that. He doesn't see that something is off. And we would automatically assume and take that as he doesn't care. Well, sometimes it's not that he doesn't care. He just hasn't invested enough time into developing that part of him in order to give you what you need. Yeah. So I wanted to say that first. The second is, sometimes women, we do have to give guidance in the conversations. Because they sometimes, brothers miss the mark, like they do, because we are these emotional beings. And sometimes I need this. I don't need the same every time. I don't need the same response. Sometimes I really am venting, and I want you to hear me, but don't respond. I'm just venting. I'm really not trying to fix it. I really just want to get this off of me. And then there are times when, no, I'm not venting. I really do want your guidance. I really do want to know what you think about this. So I need that. And sometimes as women, we have to give it. We just have to say, hey, look, I don't really want a response this time. I'm just venting. Or if after you're done talking, I say, okay, now tell me what you think. Yep. So I just, on that part, I just think it's communication. But before we get to that, I think there just needs to be some understanding just about how we're wired different. And just because we're wired different doesn't mean that we don't have to put in the effort to understand what we're in relationship with. As women, we have to understand men don't normally catch things that. And as men, you have to understand that women sometimes want you to catch it.
Absolutely. I think that's really good. Yeah, I think that's good. And I didn't speak a lot to this point. Ladies, listen, it's important. Like, you got to know that your husband is not a mind reader. He is not a mind reader. And I know sometimes that's part of the job description. That we supposed to be mind readers as it come to our wives, but ladies, honestly, we're not, and it becomes frustrated because sometimes, and especially if you're attitudinal. And you consistently have an attitude. So we don't know, and this is so important, because sometimes we don't know if it's us, if it's your parent that did something to you, if it's your daughter, if it's your employer, because you handle the situation the same way. Because you have an attitude when you and your daughter are at odds. You have an attitude when you and your employer are at odds. You have an attitude when something goes on, and then you have an attitude if your husband doesn't do something that you asked him to do. So as far as he know is I don't know what you're upset. So he's thinking that, well, you're upset with me again. So you're quiet again. You're not talking again. You're not speaking again. And when you don't communicate your frustration, how do you expect him to respond? So I think that's a
So
really.
let me
Let's
say
go.
this.
Come on.
What is wrong with asking?
Yes. So sometimes the brothers ask, and this is the response: nothing. What's wrong, baby? Nothing. Baby, nothing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And
I
so,
get that.
so
I get
when the answer is nothing, then most of us we only assume, okay, I've done something wrong, because oftentimes it's nothing, 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 and then 3 days later, this is what happened. When you didn't empty the garbage, or you didn't notice me, or you didn't see my hair, and every time I asked you, you didn't answer your phone, and it's, hey, communicate what's wrong. When I asked you before. Now we got 3 days and we've been beefing and not being on one accord and not speaking to each other, and you finally say something. So what happens the next time when you're upset? The same thing happens. It's 4 days later we find out what was really wrong.
Continues.
Now you're upset because your employer disrespected you, and I say, hey, what's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. So I'm automatically assuming that, okay, all right, it's I did something again, and so that's why it's important to communicate. Hey, babe, it's not you. It's not you. I'm just having a moment. Just give me a minute. But without that level of communication, to the brother's question, he's feeling like we're not mind read. I don't know what to say, because I'm messed up if I do. I'm messed up if I don't. So I think that's the important piece. Understand that we're not mind readers. Communicate. You are a whole grown person. Communicate what is going on, whether it be with your husband, whether it be with your employer, whether it be with your parents, whether it be with your daughter, whoever. Just communicate. Hey, this is what's going on. Talk. Communicate. Say something, and don't expect us to read your minds.
All right. This question is coming from someone else on our TikTok fam. The one says, how do I respect a man that treats me right but doesn't lead? Every time I inquire about something, it's I don't know or I'm not sure.
So I think you asked the question, how do I respect him? He treats me right, but he doesn't lead. So how do I respect him? Because my job is to respect him. So your job is to respect him, whether he leads or not. You married him, and so you're commanded to respect him, whether he leads or not. So I think his leadership should have very little or nothing to do with your respect. You respect him. That's who you decided to say I do to. That's who you decided to say, hey, I give my life to you. I'm submitted to you. You're my king. You're my man. You're my husband. So now part two. I think what you're hoping that you're communicating is that I do respect him, but it's really difficult to respect him how I want to respect him, because he doesn't lead. And if I was talking to the man, that's a conversation for him as well, in terms of that's legit, and that's how we cause our wives to feel when we don't lead. It's difficult for them to respect. It's difficult for them to honor how that they should really honor the honor that we're deserving of, when we're not leading. It's difficult to follow behind a parked car. It's difficult to follow somebody that has no vision, that doesn't know where they're going. It's difficult to really follow that person with excitement. But I'm not talking to him. You asked the question. I'm speaking to you. I think it's important that, you communicate with him the importance of his leadership, how you need him to lead, how that's important to you. And especially if he treat you right. So, and I think so you have something to build on, because he loves you, he treats you right, but it's just something with his leadership ability. I think it's important that you communicate with him just your desire for him to lead, and how it makes you feel when he doesn't lead, in a loving manner. Hey, look, when you, because there's areas that he has led in. And so being wise in that instance, so when he's led in a certain area, let him know how that make you feel, because you're really in a sense training and teaching. Tori and I had this conversation, you remember, and you didn't like the word at first, like, it was coaching. You're really coaching. And so I would tell her, I'm coaching you about something. And she was like, coach me. And I think you eventually got it because I'm like, you're coaching me as
the
well.
understanding of the word coaching.
Yes,
Right.
it's you're coaching me as well. If I fall short in a certain area and she has an answer to how she want to be treated, but I'm just missing the mark, she shouldn't just allow me to sit over here and continue to miss the mark, but coach me into what she really want. Communicate and kind of show me like, hey, look, when I make this great decision, stop, pause, celebrate that great decision. Hey man, when you did this, when you told us we was going out of town and you made the reservations, that made me feel like Queen Sheba because you are on point, and I love that. So that's what I mean about your leadership. So find him doing something good, celebrate that. Find him leading the smallest thing that he does that communicates leadership, celebrate that. Pause, speak to that, because what's celebrated is often repeated. So when you celebrate him, he'll continue to repeat that. But don't just sit back and expect him to be this great leader and to continue to do it, and you never celebrate him when he lead, but you criticize him or feel some kind of way when he doesn't lead. That'll never get him to the place that he needs to be. So I think that's what's important, your role in coaching him and not letting him know, hey, I'm coaching you to lead, but you're pretty much coaching him for him to give you what it is that you need, because you need him to lead and you need him to take authority. You need him to have vision and give some sense of direction. And any woman love a man that leads. It does something for her. But just find him leading, celebrate that, encourage him in that, and he'll continue to repeat what you celebrate.
Okay, good answer. That was very good. Here's another question from Blue BYUO, and his question is, and this was in response to a video that was posted on TikTok in regards to when you don't have time or when you're finding that you're not connecting with your spouse sexually, you make time, you schedule it, make it a part of your schedule, set an appointment to do it. And their response or their question was, what happens when one person doesn't have a respect for time?
Yeah, I think that's tough, because if the issue is already
that we're not connecting.
And so now we're putting safeguards in place to ensure that we connect.
Meaning the appointments, setting the time,
yes,
all of that.
Setting the times. Hey, listen, so tonight at 9:30 we're together, or every Tuesday and Friday at 9:00 we're together. I think you have to be intentional. Your spouse has to be intentional about making sure that it happens.
Right.
Because when that doesn't happen, that's a withdrawal in the relationship. And if you continue, it's because obviously there's already withdrawals, because it's been a hard time of you all connecting anyway. So now when you don't make that time, the withdrawals continue and problems arise in your relationship. So I think it's, whatever the situation is, if it's a time management issue, or if it's they're not
then
interested in
that.
Yeah, but I think that has to happen, and I think the communication needs to be, if you put something in place and if one, you want it to happen organically, you want it to just happen spontaneously. And so if that doesn't happen, okay, so now, now you two busy and we missing each other. Okay, here's our schedule, and it doesn't happen then. I don't know. You have to just, your spouse has to be intentional about making it happen. You have to communicate with them. Hey, this is what we're not doing, and this is why we're here. And so we put this in place because we weren't just organically connecting. And so we're still not connecting by having, times in place. And it's very, very frustrating. And I don't know what you expect me to do, but I need you, So I think it's not a really good answer for that outside of communicate. You have to communicate the frustration and try to find out what needs to be done, why they're not connecting. There's a reason that they don't want to connect. Is it that they're too busy? Is it that, that you're not priority to them, but just really communicating how that's making you feel. It's making you feel like you're not wanted, like you're not desired, like they don't care, and like they're trying to find everything in their power to do rather than be with you. And so communicate. And if your communication doesn't work, I think it's important to seek counseling.
Amen. Totally agree. So our next question is from She Cute 1013. And
Okay.
she is asking, so how do we learn to influence our husband? What do we do? someone under that question answered it, and I want to highlight what Miss Charlene said right under that. So Charlene says, be more soft and feminine when speaking to them about wants and needs. Also, timing is important.
That's it. Just a Charlene
7.
Charlene 7, you rocked it. I think
Yes.
that is so important as it relates to influence and speaking to your man. Sometimes, men can be stubborn. And oftentimes you can say
don't
something
say.
to a man. What you just say, girl?
You don't say.
Oh, so I'm stubborn.
I just said you don't say. You don't say. Okay.
But it's important because men can be really stubborn. And sometimes, your voice in his life can sound like his mama's voice. And that's one of the worst things that a man want to feel, that he's being treated like a boy, or that you acting like his mama. It's like, no, don't act. You don't tell me what to do. When I got grown, I got out of my mama's house. I've been listening to her voice. You got to do this and clean up and empty the garbage. And I ain't, so I ain't got married. So you're not my mama. So you have to be careful with this, because sometimes you can tell a man the right thing to do, but how you say it would determine if he does it or not.
That would be correct.
He'll become stubborn, and even though it's the right thing, he won't do it just to show you that you don't run him. You listen, ladies, he will show you that, I'm going to do something that I know that may hurt us a little bit. I may do something that I know that's going to take me longer. It may do something that's going to cause us more money. But because you said it the way that you said it, it ain't going to happen. And so that is what you have to think about, to where, okay, so now, is it dumb? Yeah, it's dumb. It's not wise, for him to do that. No, it's not wise for him not to do that, but it's a reality. And what we do sometimes as men, because of the approach that you take when you speak to us. So, and we don't make all the best decisions all the time. And so when you have that man and your husband, he's not making the wisest decisions, and you're really trying to get him to do something or to make another decision, use your influence in his life, because he asks you questions. See, as men, we ask you questions. We want your input because you're smart, you're intelligent. You make, it take us 4 hours to do certain things, and it take you 20 minutes. And we know that, and we lean into that. I was talking about before, I can type out a document, and it'll take me like 4 hours to type out a document on point. I can get her to do it. 30 minutes, here you go. And I'm like, I would have had to read through every line, every detail, but she's on point. So I lean into her for that. And so when she speak to me in such a way to where you need to, well, she don't do that, but it's when you speak to your husband such a way, you need to, it's kind of like, no, I don't need to do nothing. So that type of language would cause him to rebuttal, to not to show you that you don't run nothing. So understand that he already hears you. He already respects you. He already trusts your opinion. So you have influence in his life. Now, to get him to move, to get that influence in his life, to use the influences in his life, to get him to really move how he needs to move is very important. And I think Charlene said it, be feminine about it. Make sure the timing is right. Make sure your tone is right when you're speaking to him. Hey, baby, and you rub his hand. Come here, give me. You rub his hand. Hey, baby, I know that you said that that we weren't going out of town this year, but I think it's so important, just that we do. And here's why. Because when we go out of town, I'm more relaxed. When we go out of town, it relieves my stress. When we go out of town, I pay more attention to detail. I pay more attention to you. And I just think it will behoove you to get me in a place, where I need to be. Because when I'm on point, you on point. And when you blow up, boom, bam, we all blow up. You understand what I'm saying? I know it's a little comical, but it's that. You talk to your man like that. You rub your man like this. You slow it down and you speak in a different tone when you're speaking to him. And that timing is right. The man will jump over the moon and go to Pluto and back for you. But use your influence, not your control, not your manipulation, not your attitude, because see, the Bible says that the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. And sometimes, in order for you to get your way, you use control. You use control, you use manipulation, you deny yourself of him. You see what I'm saying? And don't use that, because you're trying to get him to do a certain thing, so you withhold sex from him. You don't give him sex because that's a way of controlling him, because because if I want him to get something done, then if I withhold this from him, then he'll do it in order to get this. That is witchcraft. Stop doing that, and stop using the silent treatment to get your way. Stop trying to control him. You understand? And use influence. These things are things that I feel that are naturally. You naturally, that's your response when you really want something, or there may be a way that you've handled things in the past.
Yes.
I want something, now let me manipulate it. I want something, let me control the situation. Or I've seen my parents control a situation like this. I want something, so let me give them the silent treatment. And if I get mad, because that's what kids do. When my kids get upset with me, they really don't get it. They ask for something, I say no, and they get an attitude. Oh, no. I'm gonna go and get it then. You really not gonna get it then. The best thing for you to do is to not get an attitude and have a good attitude and make me feel, okay, I can go ahead and do it. But the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. And you've seen your manipulation, your attitude, your control, your withholding sex from him. You've seen it work for you, but it really doesn't work in the long game. Use your influence. Speak softly to him. Wait on the correct timing. Touch him. And I'm telling you, he'll jump over the moon and go to Pluto and back for you. But use your influence, lady. That's a wise woman, because a wise woman does what? Builds her house. Build your house. Build your man by using influence versus control and manipulation.
And the manipulation and control, it comes from, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about that. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone about leadership and how so many people on their jobs they go into a job and they have the skill set, they have the wisdom, the knowledge to do better and to contribute, but they are of the mindset that, and they could absolutely make the place better, but they are of the mindset that, well, they didn't ask me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. They only paying me for this, so I'm not going to give more effort than this. And I said this to them. I said, well, a part of it is we come into situations sometime and our minds are already made up. This is what we're going to give. I'm not giving anything beyond this. I'm not growing beyond this. I'm not going to exert any more energy. And sometimes on a job, that's the case. I said, but it's appalling to me that people will have something to bring to the table, but because they don't know how to lead their peers and because they don't know how to lead up, they don't want to exert any energy or effort into learning a new skill or developing a new skill. They would much rather stay subpar. And I think that's also in relationships. That's new for some of us, being manipulative, and we didn't see it like that growing up, or being controlling. We just saw that in order to get your way, you had to do certain things. So we were not taught how to communicate at a very young age. Use your words. Say to me what it is that you're trying to say. What is it that you want? Teaching your young children, not hitting them every time they can't, get something out, or in emotion. When you're experiencing negative emotions or difficult emotions, this is why it's so important to teach our children to communicate when they're experiencing negative emotion, even when they're experiencing good emotion, because all of this teaches them how to communicate the right way, how to communicate their needs. And most of us have learned, in order to get your needs met, you have to control, you have to manipulate the situation for things to go your way. When the lesson that could have been taught is just simply how to communicate what you want. When you have we have a little cousin who has no problem saying what she wants. If she says, I'm going with you today, she says, I'm coming over your house. And it's like, okay, well, I guess you're coming over my house today. Very, very little was she, very few times has she been denied what it is that she wants. But there are others who don't have freedom of expression in that, and they're very timid, or that has not been encouraged in them to do. So they struggle with that. Now, I can just say that I don't think this cousin that I'm referring to, I don't think that when she's 12 or 13, I hope that, that's continued in her. But when she's older, that she won't have a problem saying, hey, this is what I need from you.
Right. That's right.
And I don't have to manipulate you or try to control you to meet this need. This is just what I need. And so some of that controlling and that manipulation really is learned behavior. And we've just become so adapted to it, and we're just so used to operating in it that it's really hard to dial back and say, hey, there really is another way to skin this cat. There really is another way for me to there is a right way to get my needs met without me having to use control methods or manipulation to get them met.
Absolutely. We have any other questions?
That's it for
That's
today.
it. Oh my goodness, y'all! We closing out season 1.
This is
of
it.
the Still in Love podcast.
Yay!
Still in Love. If y'all want more, y'all gotta let us know that y'all want us to continue to go into season 2. Let us know we want season 2. We want to. But I'm really excited. I really enjoyed this time. I really enjoyed just interacting with you all, answering the questions. I hope we really got to most of the questions. If not, we'll do some live on TikTok, live on Facebook, and until we come back for season 2. But I hope that you all really enjoyed.
Yes,
Still
thank
in
y'all
Love.
for rocking with us.
Yes, thanks for listen. Have a Merry
y'all been
Christmas.
rocking.
They've been rocking with
They
us.
have. Y'all have really been rocking with us, and we really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, did we let y'all know that we're in the top 25 percentile of podcasts?
Yay.
In the top 25, y'all made that possible. We thank you all for tuning in. We thank you all for sharing. We thank you for downloading. We thank you for coming. We appreciate you all.
Yes.
So,
now, when we return for season 2, our goal is to get into that top 10%. And we know that it's going to happen because you guys have been supporting us and rocking with us real tough. So go ahead and share this podcast the whole season with your family and your friends, and tell them to go and subscribe to the Still in Love podcast, and be on the lookout as we let you know what's going to come in the upcoming months. Amen.
Amen. God bless. We love you.
Peace. Thank you for listening to the Still in Love podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has indeed blessed your life. If it has, we need you to do 3 things for us. 1, we want you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform, so that way you can be notified when a new episode drops. Number 2, we want you to review it. Click on that 5-star and let us know how much you enjoyed it. We absolutely love feedback here at the Still in Love podcast, and this helps us to make sure that we are scratching where there's an itch. And number 3, we want you to share it with a friend or family member. Also, if you have a question, we'd love to hear it and even talk about it right here on the podcast. You can submit those questions at stillinlovepodcast.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Innovation Church Memphis, and on TikTok at We Are Innovation. Until next time, peace.
Don't just start in love,
but stay in love.
Thanks for tuning in to Still in Love podcast. God bless.